Microphone. I did this last time too, where I forgot to unmute the microphone going into the show. And I'll go on and on and on because I'm looking at the camera and not the chat. So, here we go. We'll try it again. Welcome to Inside the Upside Down. Yes, I know. The replay now is going to have 3 minutes of freaking dead time.
Might need to make a note of that for showtime time.
It's like within seconds because I had just muted it before we went live. And then it's like, what, all of like 20 seconds? And then I kick it into live? I don't know. So, welcome to Inside the Upside Down. I'm Mike. This is Shana. You know us. We'll go through it all again. I know it's going to be redundant for us. But for those that are tuning into this show, maybe came in late to the previous one or you weren't able to make that one, we do want to thank everybody for helping us get to 5,000 subscribers on the Haunted Road Media YouTube channel. It was a big goal of ours to get there, and so all weekend long Shana was pushing it out there. Yesterday Vanessa, Donna, Candy Orton were getting in on the action and just put us over the top. And so it's really just from deepest of our hearts, thank you for helping us get there. 10,000 is the next goal by my birthday, and what we're doing right now is a giveaway for reaching that goal. And that is a Haunted Road Media t-shirt of your choice. This is one of them, the Edge of the Rabbit Hole. And we've got a couple of others. Maybe you'll get a designer to edition by this time next week. So we'll do the drawing next week. You have to let us know through a different social media means other than YouTube to let us know. So send a message on Facebook or Twitter or whatever. And just let us know you want to be entered in the contest. And we'll get you in there. So that, and June 9th is our event at Mineral Springs in Alton, Illinois. We still have to put the details and the event page and all that stuff together, but we've been letting people know to go ahead and mark their calendars. So there you go. That's it. So now that you can hear us. So, yeah, and people are like, yeah, no big deal. Put a note to remind you. I know. It's like I was just reminding myself seconds beforehand. And then it's like I'm juggling all this stuff within those couple of seconds, and then I just missed it. So it's the replay. I'm sorry, the people on the replay are going to be like, "What's this?" Okay, so what we wanted to talk about tonight was ghosts, poltergeists, hauntings, all different types of paranormal activity. Shana, I think this was your idea. I think we were sitting there like, "What are we going to talk about this week?" And you kind of tossed it out there. I think it was because of a discussion that we were having. And so I was like, well, let's talk about, all these different types of paranormal activity. What's a ghost? What's a residual haunt? What's a poltergeist? What are these different types of entities that we talk about? I mean, shoot, we could talk about wraiths, banshees, shadow people, whatever. What are these different types of entities? So I know you usually have a pretty good definition of residual haunt. So we could start there. If you'd like.
Yeah, I had to, the poltergeist one interested me because I had always thought that it was because, I'd always thought it was because of one thing, and had actually been exposed to it, and I guess didn't even know it. So
yeah.
I always assumed that it was just some really strong, something other than just a noisy ghost. And if that's the case, then I've been having all kinds of poltergeist activity. So
yeah, the definition is just poltergeist is a German word. It just means noisy ghost. And I know in recent years we've kind of attributed this to a lot of times a young teenage girl who's manifesting quote unquote poltergeist activity, which okay, fine, I believe that they are manifesting poltergeist activity, and so I've actually been on cases like that, but that's not. People have now just made that like exclusive of this is what a poltergeist is, and it's like no, that's the type of activity that they're generating through what's going on with them emotionally and their abilities that they're just not aware of that are projecting. But a real poltergeist is what you experienced at the cafe, and I'd love for you to just kind of describe what was going on that night, because it just absolutely fascinates me. It's one of the reasons why I just love to get into this cafe that is inaccessible at this point.
Yeah, it was pretty fascinating to me too, actually. And I mean, before that night, we had so many different kinds of activity going on, so many different voices, so many different, anything that you could possibly think of, it had happened in that building. And that building had a lot of history. And it's had a lot of things, happen there. But that particular night, we were there for an investigation, just like any other night, only we had a skeptic with us. And when I say skeptic, I mean, he was, ha ha ha, oh, what was that? And laugh about it, and I had a feeling that before the end of the night was out, his mind was going to be changed, but I didn't realize how dramatic it was going to be when it changed.
Right.
We had just your regular run-of-the-mill activity, footsteps, which we kind of blow off, and until it started to sound like there was furniture moving around upstairs. And, we'd had, random cases of that, but this sounded like heavier furniture moving upstairs. And right above us, which would have meant that it was, there was an apartment upstairs, and it would have been the kitchen area. And there really, other than, the stove, which is kind of like bolted to the wall, and, there was a chair that just materialized up there one day. Like,
just out of nowhere.
We don't know how. Yeah, we don't know how it got there. Actually, what had happened was the refrigerator door was open, and it looked like somebody tried to shove it in there. So wow. We have no idea. Now, I'm the only one that goes upstairs. I was the only one that went upstairs because I was the only one that was brave enough to stand on step to go through this whole cubby hole, So I was the only one going up there. And furthermore, there is not a hole big enough for that chair to go into. So we're still confused as to how it got there. But anyway, we started hearing the furniture moving around. There's no indoor plumbing in there. It had been a functioning business at one time, but the business closed, and so they just shut everything off. Electricity, plumbing, everything. And you could still use the restroom. You just had to, take a jug of water with you, and the plumbing worked that way. So because of the activity in the building, we had all decided that probably nobody who didn't feel comfortable being alone in the building or in a room should be in a room. So if you wanted to go somewhere and you didn't want to go alone, and people went with you. So somebody had to use the restroom. And there was like a dining area. It was a cafe / thrift store. We were in the dining area of the cafe, and then there was this little ramp that led up into the kitchen area. And there was a lot of times you'd hear that ramp creak, so you knew that, if you heard that ramp creak, something, was walking on it. And you could always hear it. It was unmistakable. So we all decided as a group to head towards the back of the building where the bathroom was. And as soon as we, all of us had cleared that ramp and made it into the next room, something slammed the door on us with enough force to, shake the building. I mean, it was just a deafening noise. Scared the crap out of me, of course, because, not only was I not the last one, because I'm never the last one, but, we had made it well past the entryway whenever it slammed. And so we were all like, what the hell? So by that time, the person that had to go to the bathroom really had to go to the bathroom at that point. And so she went, and then we're all just kind of standing there, like, wondering, what had slammed the door so hard? What was on the other side? And we're paranormal investigators, so, that's kind of what we go for. You want to see stuff like that. If you don't want to see stuff like that, then you shouldn't go, because that stuff is going to happen sometimes. So then I announced before we opened the door that I was going to open the door. I'm going to go first, of course, because I never go last. And open the door, and standing right there were all, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, there's probably 5 or 6 of us at that point, and we all saw this giant shadow figure standing there. And if I had to guess, it was pretty close to, it was well over 6 feet. And
that's pretty big.
Well over. And it was pretty broad too. I mean, it was pretty good size, but we all saw it just standing there. Couldn't see any features or anything like that. But it stood there, and then it started walking over towards the other side of the room. I guess walking. I didn't really notice that there were legs. It just moved to the other side of the room, and then it was just gone. And we had candles lit out in the other room, so
okay.
It's not like it just disappeared into darkness or anything like that. I mean, it just was there, and then it moved across the room, and then it just wasn't there anymore. So we went out and sat at the table and decided to kind of, plan another, what our next move was going to be after all that. And if we should change the line of questioning, we sat there for maybe a minute, and I just got this blast of fear. And I was actually scared to be in the building anymore. And, I don't usually get, terrified, scream, run from the building.
No, you don't.
Scared, but I just knew something bad was going to happen. I felt something bad was going to happen. So I grabbed my stuff, and I stood up, and I was like, I got to get out of here. We need to go. And it didn't take me long to make it towards the door, right? So I was the first one there. And everybody else was blowing out candles and grabbing their stuff and making tracks for the door. Mr. Skeptic included, who I didn't know what to think after the shadow experience and the door slam. So, because till then he had never seen anything like that before. So anyway, from my spot at the entrance to the building, I was looking across the room, and there was a sheet of plastic covering one of the doorways, and I didn't see anybody, but something split it, right down the middle. That bothered me a lot, because it was just a nice clean slice right down the window. Yeah. I mean, there was just, or right down the plastic. So I was like, oh my God, and everybody's running towards the door at that point, and we're in a thrift store part of it at that point. And across the room, I see these metal shelves that were up near the ceiling, and they're being tossed off the walls. There's a clothes rack that was shoved to the side, and everybody had made it out of the building except for my friend Rita and the Skeptic, who was second to last. And as soon as she cleared the doorway and we all made it safely out from across the room at, I would say, 3 o'clock, this bookcase was sitting on the floor, and it's a couple of shelves high, and it was full of books, and it had some stuff sitting on top of it as well, and it came up off the floor and flung across the room and bounced off of the doorway where we were at and went into the next room. So we shut the door, didn't even bother locking the building at that point.
Right.
And our Skeptic had ran out, and he was still running around in circles asking us what was he supposed to do, where was he going to go, and he was just terrified, and and whenever I think back to that night, nothing that we had asked was disrespectful.
Right.
Nothing different than what we usually ask. Nobody provokes anybody. Now there were a couple of spirits in that building that in life didn't deserve anybody's respect. And
I was going to say that there's there's at least one that in particular that was a pretty nasty, nefarious guy.
Oh yeah, yeah, and unfortunately, one of them for sure was related to me by marriage back
Right.
through the years, and then the other one was just he was just a nasty person. I mean, and we had countless EVPs of a male spirit. It had to be one of the two saying really rude things to the women that came in there, and he put his hands on us, and he was just terrible. And of course, that is where ectogasm.
So where ectogasm came in, yes.
Well, for anybody who has not heard that story, that's where that.
It was pretty prevalent on the last show, so yeah.
Yeah. You know, we have audio. If you ever wonder if, you know, a spirit likes to have a little fun with himself, the answer is yes. They do that. So, was it a residual? Maybe. You know, we caught it on audio, but the ectogasm moment, I don't feel like that was residual.
No, I would definitely say it's not residual. Everything else that you're talking about beforehand, things getting thrown around, the bookcase, all of that. I mean, that would be classified as poltergeist activity. So, yeah, I know you didn't really know beforehand that that's what you would chalk it up as, but yeah, that's really what it is.
I mean, what I did know, or what I did assume, you know, and I could see how people would think, you know, something that violent, you know, oh my God, it's a demon. Well,
no, that wasn't a demon. It's just a nasty guy.
Yeah, I mean, I have never felt anything demonic, and I would like to think that I would know the difference. You know, like I said, I've been compelled to exit a building quickly. I've been surrounded by pretty negative energy before, which I just always 99.9% of the time assume is just an angry human spirit.
Yeah.
You know, this is not TV, and I'm not trying to gain any ratings from anybody.
Not trying to get possessed while you're there?
Yeah, it's going to not be a demon to me. I mean, you know, if that's what it takes to be whatever, then that's not going to happen here. So.
Yeah. So I do need to thank Tom McNicholas for the super heart on Periscope and all the hearts that are being tossed out there. Absolutely appreciate that. So, yeah, so that's that's poltergeist activity. That's what it would be. Is, you know, anything being thrown around, you know, the bookcases falling over. I mean, for me, probably the most prevalent poltergeist activity would have been the picture of Lizzie Borden crashing to the stairs, which was just after the bureau drawer had been slammed shut. This was at the Stone Lion Inn. So those are the types of things that get attributed to that. So, you know, it may not necessarily be one particular spirit. Very well could be. Could be a you know, again, you know, what's kind of come out these days are these young people that are able to, they don't understand what's going on with them, and you know, they are manifesting this energy that is doing things around their house. So that gets chalked up to paranormal activity or poltergeist activity. A poltergeist would be like one specific spirit that's doing all this stuff. So, but that's very different than something like a residual haunt. And I know a couple people in there were throwing up a residual haunt. So we could talk about that real quick. And so basically that's the playback of something that's happened before, a playback of an event. Somehow the energy has been captured in that area, and we don't really know why it is, but it's getting kicked off and played back, and we're there to see it. So sometimes you see these, you know, spirits walk through walls, or it may even just be, you know, something audio that kicks off, and it's always, you know, the same time of night or same day, or it might be, you know, on the anniversary or something, or just it might not even be on any particular day, but it's the same sound, it's the same voice, the same words, what have you. So something like that is not intelligent. And Shauna, I know that you say you don't even consider it a haunting. It's just energy being played back, and I tend to agree with that.
Yeah, to me, a haunting is something that will interact with you. I mean, technically, the building is being, haunted by this energy, this residual energy. But to me, a true haunting is something that interacts with you.
Yeah, yeah.
That's my opinion. That's what I think.
Yeah, because if you think of the word haunt, and I think we discussed this the other day, if you think of the word haunt, like in conjunction with yourself, when you talk about a place that you like to frequent, or like an old childhood haunt, it's some place that you would go and you would hang out, and some place that you would frequent, and you are an intelligent person, doing these different things. These residual haunts, quote unquote, aren't doing that. I mean, they're just it's just a playback. It's like watching a movie. And so there's a theory out there called stone tape theory, which really plays into this, in that whether it's stone or metal or what have you, somehow that energy gets trapped inside there, and then there's something else that is able to trigger, that's able to kick it off and make it play back. So if you think of like a cassette tape, that you have your magnetic tape that's in there, and then you have your read write head, for maybe not trying to get too technical, but there's something that kicks it off with the mechanical device. You pressing the button, electricity getting put into that, to make it play back through the speakers. We don't know what it is that makes it play back, but like on a magnetic tape, this energy, this data really is trapped within the surroundings, and there's something that kicks it off and makes it play back. So
yeah, that's how a building that's got a lot of footsteps in it. If
like Campsville.
Happened,
Campsville Grade School. Yeah, I know with Campsville Grade School, you chalked it up to that. I guess Carrie Parrish wants to share a experience at the Stanley Hotel, a residual haunt there. So go ahead, throw it in there, and we'll share that. But yeah, those footsteps at the Campsville Grade School, I mean, they were awesome. We heard them all the time, back and forth, and we tried for a while to see if there was any sort of intelligence back behind there, but we never really could determine that there was any intelligence behind it. We looked up there. We even did all kinds of historic research to see if there was some sort of second floor that had once been there, if there was a different building that was on the property that it had a second floor. It was a one-floor building. We kept hearing all these footsteps from a floor that didn't exist. Your dad came along and got a ladder, and we went up in there, and there's just rafters up there in the attic. So, yeah, that was. Jessica Shea says, no matter how many times someone explains residual haunt, I don't get it. Thanks, Mike. I get it now. It's not an actual haunt. It's a replay. Yep. Exactly what it is. So I don't want to get off this topic just yet because I'm waiting for Carrie. So Carrie just put continue at the beginning of your post after the HRM part. So I'm going to, I guess, scroll through here and try to find it if it's already in here somewhere. Or maybe you're telling Carrie to do that. So, anything else you want to add about residual haunts, Shauna?
I think, I've even seen, an apparition, before that I thought, was a residual haunt. I guess it could come in the form of anything. I did see one, an apparition one time in a cafe, but it just came and went a couple of times throughout the night and didn't look at anybody and didn't respond when I called out. So, yeah, a residual, haunt doesn't always have to be, a noise. It can be, I think it could be, an object or a person too.
Yeah, it's I mean, yeah, it could. You know, that's interesting. It could be an object. You know, like let's for instance, you know, like a ghost car. You know, we've heard tales of, you know, haunted roads. In fact, this Friday we're going to our Friday night ghost frights is going to be on haunted roads. But you hear about phantom cars that, you know, driving down the road and you see the car and it wasn't really there. So it does show up as it is an object sometimes too, and how it gets captured, and maybe it's in the road. You know, I don't know. Although, you know, there are intelligent there are intelligent ghost cars as well, but there are certainly residual ones that just play back. So, you know,
I saw that once at an intersection here, so I just chalked it up that, you know, maybe it was one that was involved in an accident or something at that particular point.
mm-hmm.
And it was just playing back on the, maybe on the anniversary of it, or, you know, I have no idea. I mean, I've been here for about 3 or 4 years, but I only saw it, you know, just one time. I guess maybe I just happened to be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. You know, and you also hear stories about places like old battlefields like Gettysburg, where people will see what they think is a reenactment. And they'll see all these soldiers in formation marching, and, you know, they go off into the woods somewhere or whatever, and they approach the park service and say, "Wow, well, you guys had a really good reenactment put on today." And the park service is like, "We had no reenactment scheduled for today." So they had basically seen, you know, something from, you know, the Civil War play out right before them. But again, that's just residual. It's just a playback. So it's, you know, you're seeing, you're almost like seeing a movie play out before your eyes of the past. So it's, to me, it's a fantastic way, if you can see a residual haunt, to see a playback of something that had happened. So, and Bridget Willis is saying, "I've had a car drive right through us, and when we looked back, it was gone. We thought for sure we were hit. I braced for the hit, and nothing. It was just gone." So that's really interesting. So, I'm waiting on Carrie here. Carrie, we need to get moving forward here to the next topic. So, so maybe it was a Fungi, maybe it was a reenactment rehearsal. No, it was just that's what some of these reports are. Though, is that, you know, it's not a reenactment rehearsal. They would have figured that out, but they've just, you know, seriously seen a, you know, something from back in the Civil War that just played out before their eyes. So, from Lenora, what does it mean when you bump into something solid that's not there? So, what would you call that? I mean, because, I mean, it's I guess it would be a manifestation of energy, of an entity that's there. I've never bumped into a wall that wasn't there before, but, you know, people and things that you can't necessarily see, sure, that's happened. Usually you feel like the static or the maybe cold or something like that. Shana, I know you felt a number of different things.
Yeah, I've never bumped into anything solid, you know, that wasn't there. I've been touched by many things.
Yeah.
People, whatever. And some of I don't ever get the cobweb feeling. I get tingles, or I'll feel colder in one spot wherever it's going on. And at Mineral Springs, it actually felt like, you know, somebody had grabbed my hand. And so right. I grabbed back. I thought it was you. If I hadn't have known that you were not even close to me, I would have thought that you just reached out and held my hand. But I knew that that wasn't true. So, you know, and then there was, I don't know. Yeah, I've been grabbed more than anything else.
Right. Yeah,
really.
You seem to get grabbed a bit, like down in the pool area of Mineral Springs. You've called the guy Mr. Fast and Grabby.
That was in the Goldenrod first.
The first Mr. Fast and Grabby was in the Goldenrod, yeah.
Yeah, Fast and Grabby originated there.
Yeah. Tom is asking, does the Mineral Springs Hotel heat? The parts that they're using right now are heated. There is an option to heat the cooler parts, but because nobody's using them for business or deliver or anything like that, they keep that off. Of course, they don't want to waste the, you know, or let the utility bill go crazy. So, okay, Rika from Rika Yamakaze. What does it mean when a shadow person just looks down on you while you're in bed? Oh, I guess I can answer that one. Because I have had a shadow person look down on me in bed. A little bit different experience, though, is that it crossed my arms and then ran off down the hall. I still really don't know what that means. Some people have suggested that they were putting me into a burial pose because they, for whatever reason, thought I was dead. Shadow people are very mysterious beings. A lot of times we don't really know what it is that they want. They're not all evil. They're not all bad. Some are. But we are still trying to figure out what their motives are. Why do they appear in our rooms? Why do they sometimes just stand there and look at us? Why did that one interact with me? We're not really sure yet. So basically what we can do at this point is just kind of catalog all the different experiences that people have had and see what are some of the common themes that each of these experiences have between them. So that's one of the things I'm doing with my upcoming book is I'm trying to put all those different things together like that. So I think we got something from Carrie here. Let me try to go back. So Carrie, the first thing that I have from you, it seems like you've already started writing it, but all I've got is I looked back at the sailors and they were soaking wet, splayed with bullet holes. I have nothing before that. And then I was so shocked I couldn't respond and felt a hand on my arm. It was Kevin. He was there to tell me to come back to our room. I have nothing before that. So I'm sorry we didn't get your story, except for that very end part. So everything else has been everybody else talking. Okay, so we got Rika's from Nellie Moen. When people are depressed, do all of them create a poltergeist, or what creates one? So yeah, that's kind of the more modern version of poltergeist activity. And basically what's going on is there's something going on within this person, whatever turmoil that they're feeling, whether it's depression, whether it's anger, whatever it is, that energy keeps building and building and building and building, and without them really realizing it, it is expanding from them, and it is making other things around them react. Other objects around the house can affect other people around them negatively, can affect the pets. So all these different things are happening around the house because of this energy that is expanding out of them. They just don't even realize that. So that is one form of poltergeist activity. It's kind of like I said, a more modern version of it. As we've come to understand that, people are we are all bundles of energy, and so we manifest energy. We connect with people on energy. We can pick up on energy from around us, even from distances, if you have those types of abilities. So that's it's one of those areas that we're continuing to learn more about. So what else do we have? From Ren Oak, there are non-physical entities everywhere. Well, sure. I mean, people talk about. I believe that around us is a world that we can't see. That if that quote unquote veil was to be lifted up from our eyes, that we would see all these different entities around us. People talk about their spirit guides. I've been told by a couple different people that I have 10. I don't know why a couple different people have told me that many, but so apparently if the veil is to be lifted, I would be like pretty well crowded out. So there's a lot of different types of entities that are around us that we just don't even know about or realize. I mean, you might even have the spirit of a loved one near you right now and don't even realize, and they're just there to kind of check in and visit. So, so we haven't really talked about just what's a ghost, Shana?
It's energy. It could be energy of, somebody that's passed into the next life, into the next realm, into the next, however you see that, however you think of it. It's just energy from something that's already happened.
Well, but what about the people?
It's a true human spirit. That's a ghost to me. So to anybody, I would think. I'm pretty sure that we would probably all agree, at least with that definition.
You'd be surprised sometimes. But yeah, I mean,
oh well, I know. I mean, there's some people that if it's not you, if it's not a human, then everything that's not alive is a demon. I know there's
there's those
people out there that think that. I disagree with them, respectfully.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
that's their belief.
But yeah, a spirit, of a person that had once been alive and is now just walking upon the earth just without a body anymore. And so that's, to me, that's for the most part what we interact with. All these other different supernatural entities that are out there, like shadow people, sure, there are real demons that are out there. Like any of these other, whether it's a cryptid or even like fairies, supernatural being, those are a lot more on the rare side. And I don't know. I mean, there's times where I hear these stories from people, and it's like every time you talk to them, they've had a different interaction with a different supernatural entity, and it's like, wow, there's like kind of like going through the whole monster manual here, and but we got a new one every day. But really, those and a lot of those supernatural entities do exist, black-eyed children or whatever. But those occurrences are a lot more rare than just interacting with a person. What do we have there when we're at Mineral Springs, or when we were at the Showboat, or when we were, at Campsville Grade School, or wherever we go to investigate? Sure, there's some residual stuff, but most things that we've interacted with have been people, which are your ghosts. So, where are there? This is Donna. Some see shadow people as evil beings and others as just how a usual spirit. Do you think there are two kinds? I guess. Okay. Not all shadow people are evil beings. Sure, there are evil, nasty shadow people, just like there are evil, nasty human spirits. A lot of people attribute the Hat Man to being a nasty one. The shadow people with red eyes are attributed to being a nasty one. The shadow entities that I have dealt with, I haven't had any major problems with. The one that even the one that crossed my arms, was it really doing anything malicious to me? I don't know. When I was a kid and that happened, 8 or 9 years old, sure, I was scared out of my mind. I thought it was a person was in the house and trying to do something to me, so I ran to my parents. But was it really doing anything? Are some of these people that have suggested I was putting me into a burial pose? Okay, is that a bad thing? Some of the other ones that I've seen, just one peeking into my bedroom. There's nothing malicious about that. Maybe a little creepy because it was just kind of peeking in. And there was another, I've talked about, I just put out the Shadow Person video on Friday. That was the Friday Night Ghost Frights was Shadow People. And the one at Johnny V's, it seemed like I scared it. Shana, the one at the Campsville Grade School, it was always kind of hanging around that gym door that went to the boys' locker room and down the basement. I don't know if it was particularly bad. It was just kind of hanging out there and looked like the size of a child. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like the basement.
You didn't like the basement, right?
I don't like basements anyway. I don't care where it is. So it wasn't like that particular basement, I didn't like because of something, that was going on in it. I just don't like basements in general. And,
they just kind of creep you out a little bit.
Basements just kind of creep me out a little bit. Just in every basement I've ever been in, it just seems like there's a more concentrated energy down there, and it's just hard for me to breathe in basements, and I just don't like them. It could just be me. It's probably just me because, you go into basements. Everybody else I know goes into basements. I just don't like them. But I didn't feel like anything bad was down there. It was just pretty busy down there for me. I will say one time I went down there and I didn't have any, I felt a little unsettled, a little uncomfortable. But when I went down there with my Hain twins, Tammy and Tanya Hain, that I went to school with, we went down there, and I was probably down in that basement for a good 15 minutes. Every nook and cranny of it, and I felt slightly uncomfortable, but they were just fine. So we weren't investigating the basement.
Right.
We knew it was
kind of
touring.
Our
Last time in here.
Right.
And we just wanted to make sure that no stone room door, memento was left uncovered. So I think maybe it's because I wasn't looking for anything, and I kind of just, put up some pretty good walls, shielded like you would not believe in order to stay down there for 15 minutes with them too, but I didn't want to miss anything. But just for some reason, when I'm, in an investigative mindset, or if I'm with you, everything, I have to really concentrate on blocking stuff out.
Yeah, there's something about us being together that just makes stuff open up. I don't know what that is. It's our energy or something. But that basement, there's something to be said for, I don't know if it's necessarily the basement, but I think we kind of ended up figuring out that it was more to do with the stairs, because we ended up getting what was maybe an apparition of a woman in a vintage dress there at the bottom of the stairs. And then when we tried to recreate that footage to see if we could capture the same thing, see if it was like something with the wall, matrix scene, with the brickwork or whatever, and we didn't get that, then that pebble was thrown out from that hallway that was down there to the bottom of those stairs. So, yeah, certainly. And that little pebble, that little pebble would be considered poltergeist activity because it was thrown. So, yeah, it's something definitely going on there. It's a shame we can't get in there anymore. So, see, per Zippy, someday we'll get back in there. So, per Zippy, what age do you think our minds close out things so we don't see like we did as kids? That's a really good question. Because, yeah, when we're young, our minds are really, really open to any of that activity because we haven't been told. And I think it's as we're growing up that, the world keeps telling us, our parents keep telling us, and, it's a protective thing. They're trying to protect us from the things that are, ideas and what have you that are, mean and nasty. They don't want us to be scared, of things that we may not necessarily be able to see or that maybe we can or whatever. So it's just a protective thing. Then telling us, that's not real. And so, I don't know, Shana, what do you think about, probably around the time that you stopped believing in Santa Claus, 9, 10, 11 years old, that you kind of start closing that stuff off, which I imagine has got to be rough for, you know, a preteen girl, because that's usually when they start developing a lot of abilities.
I had nothing, so I'm probably the wrong.
Well, that's right. Yeah. You didn't have any experiences as a child, so.
That was the exact opposite.
Right.
I didn't have any fear being in a dark building, in a dark room. I didn't have an imaginary friend. I didn't talk about things I, was seeing or hearing. I got nothing. And I didn't feel, there was not a blip on my radar until I moved to Alton in, God, when was it? Well, actually, when I first started experiencing things, which was in 2002. And that's not been, an extremely long time ago in my lifetime. So, I know that there had to be stuff going on in other places that I lived. My younger sister had an imaginary friend. So there was something going on, but just for some reason I had a blind eye, a blind ear, a blind everything to it. So I tried real hard to see her imaginary friend too, but it just wasn't happening.
Yeah. Carrie mentioned in there, Mike, I really believe your visitor that night was a rake and something scared it away. Yeah, I know you've suggested that to me before, and I've never really thought it was. For one, a rake is supposed to have like really long claws, which it did not. At least from what I remember, it did not. Also, and maybe they've superimposed it from old legends or whatever. But a rake is more as a term has come out more these days in Slender Man lore, which Slender Man is all fiction. So I've never really thought of that. To me, it's humanoid shadow person. So I just, some of the characteristics from what I've read just don't fit. So, what else do we have? Anybody else have questions? Yeah, because for me it was always, and I didn't have like a lot of experiences as a kid. I had some, a few. So it's not like I was particularly attuned, but you do hear stories of kids that, they're like, maybe they're seeing angels. I've heard that one before. Babies can see angels and things like that, which I'm guessing is kind of pure speculation. But yeah, because the kids are, very a lot more open-minded to that world, they can pick up on things. Now, I also had, here's an interesting one. I did have invisible friends, and some people say that, your invisible friends, for some, not all, for some kids, were actual supernatural entities. And I can't say that mine were. I had two that I named specifically that were very odd names to just kind of create and give anything or anybody. Gakokes and Weegeeks. And all the other ones, because I had like a whole like little entourage of them when I would try to like play some game or whatever that required like a lot of players. After that it was like talking turtle and talking key and talking whatever object it was, but I had two that had their own specific names. So were they? I don't know, because I don't necessarily remember seeing them either. But there are people that do say that, well, some of your invisible friends, if you had them, or something supernatural. I don't know. Okay, Donna, if poltergeists basically become an actual entity, anyone ever communicate with one? Well, a poltergeist would be again, it's just a noisy ghost. There's I guess, okay. There's a difference between poltergeist and poltergeist activity. Poltergeist activity is the is the manifestation of the activity that a poltergeist would perform. So when we talk about, these teenagers that are, making poltergeist activity happen, they are not actually a poltergeist, of course, because they're a human being, but they are making this activity happen around the house that is quote unquote poltergeist activity. So an actual poltergeist would be a ghost, not a human, a ghost that is making that activity happen. So basically what Shana experienced there at the cafe would have been a poltergeist. And I believe, Shana, you guys did communicate with it to some degree.
Before, all of it happened, we made attempts to communicate with it. Before everything started happening, we went on just with the regular investigation, was asking, who the shadow was that we saw and who slammed the door on us. And the only thing that we caught on audio was more sounds of furniture moving upstairs, and it sounded like two spirits, two of something carrying on a conversation before all hell broke loose. So, I mean, we tried to just treat it as just your normal, human spirit or whatever, just like we always do. But no idea who it was. I mean, if you can put a label, let's say you're communicating or you're attempting to communicate with someone that is, inhabiting a place. Like there were several deaths in that building. And I had actually seen human, spirits in there that I knew in life, and had recognized their voice on audio. So if they do something, if I'm interacting with them and then poltergeist activity happens, can a human spirit that who you're interacting with show or create, do they then become someone who who it is? Do they become, the noisy ghost, or is a poltergeist just a random?
Yeah, good point. Good question. Per Jimmy Pop. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say because there was a little boy there, spirit of a little boy there, and I've caught him on film.
Byron, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard his voice many times, and he and I have interacted many times. He has appeared to be as a human boy, of course, and he has appeared to me in shadow form where I had just seen him, and then the next time I saw him, he was a shadow. I mean, I've had many interactions with him. And when he came to visit me at my house one time, I wouldn't say he was extremely noisy, but he was definitely interacting in a way that was not quiet. I mean, I've actually played.
But he wasn't throwing things around. So. He wasn't being destructive.
No.
Because I think. That's kind of what a poltergeist in poltergeist activity is usually associated with, is something that's destructive, like you were experiencing with the other one there at the cafe.
Yeah.
So Byron just seems to me, ghost, human spirit, that sort of thing. So,
right.
Yeah. All of a sudden we've got a rash of questions in here, so we'll try to handle them. Per Jimmy Pop, could your friends, I'm guessing the invisible friends, have been thought forms given substance? I really don't know, because at some point that substance went away. And at some point I stopped playing with my invisible friends. So if they were thought forms given substance, where did that substance go after a period of time? I don't know. It's, I guess in a way I would prefer to keep it as it was just, me as a creative person needing an outlet to play. And if my sister wasn't up to playing and I wasn't playing with one of the other kids in the neighborhood, I put people, invented people to play with. And that's and that's the way it went down, you know. And at some point in time, I didn't need that anymore. You know, but I will say what is really interesting is the one with We Geeks, is that there was one time we were playing a game across the street at it was my sister's friend, but you know we all played together at times, and she had gotten a game from one of her relatives, and there were a lot of unusual names of these characters that were in this game. It was like almost from like another country or something, and lo and behold, it was, if I remember correctly, the character was hanging in a tree or sitting up in a tree or what have you, and the spelling of the name and the way that it was like, that's We Geeks, that's it. So it was like, okay, where did my brain get that from to create this name in my head? And here it is, it's the word I'd never seen before, but once upon looking at it, it's like, yeah, that was it. So there is that little bit of like, maybe there's something, but I tend to think not. So. Okay, this one, and this is kind of what we were talking about before in Imrio, is poltergeist activity a form of telekinesis? Okay, so I guess when it comes to those, we usually chalk it up to teens, because those are the ones that are having like the teen angst, the depression, the anger that's all like manifested inside, that's pouring forth. So in a way, yeah, that is, but not all but not all poltergeist activity is. That particular would be. So I guess we could come up with other categories and compartmentalize it some more, right? Shauna, this one's interesting. Eureka, are the Fae only in Ireland or seen everywhere?
I don't have an answer for that.
Oh, come now. What did we see on the Goldenrod?
Well, what did we see?
What did we see?
You know, that is still up for debate.
I know.
Because I have spoken with people since then who have seen similar yellow orb type, you know, things in their house that were not, you know, flitting around fairy-like exactly, but still look the same. So, and then the, you know, the little twinkles or whatever that we see, you know, I mean, what are those? I have no idea.
Well,
I don't know. I've never seen anything that says that the Fae only are from this area, or from that area, from a specific area. You know, they have different classifications, like water sprites. Well, we were by the water.
Right.
You know, I mean, you know, just because something was discovered in one area, you know, how do we know that they can't, you know, travel?
Right.
I mean, I have no idea. I don't have an answer.
Well, I think it generally gets chalked up to, you know, Ireland and all that, because they had the fairy rings and all of that. But from my understanding, you know, there have been fairy sightings all over the world. Whether or not that's what we saw on the Goldenrod, I mean, the characteristics are kind of what we generally think fairies may be. But that's something where, you know, we've kind of been fishing for information. And not from like all the old lore and mythology and all that, just, you know, from real sightings. So, you know, Shana, you're saying that you've talked to other people that have seen these different things. There was somebody that commented on one of our, it was one of our other recent videos, you know, about similar type of activity, and it was actually Native American. Because they don't have a lot of, you know, like fairy lore or little people or anything like that. But they have seen some other things that would kind of fit the description. So, you know, it's one of those that, because there is so much deep legend and lore and mythology, that I think is going to be a tough trying to weed through what's real and what's not on that one.
Yeah, if anybody has any other, you know, stories, or now Becca, my friend Becca, that lived in the same town, as I did. She has seen. She lived next to a wooded area. The Catholic and the Presbyterian cemeteries were not far from her either. And she has seen, she said, fairy rings in the woods near her house, and that's nowhere near Ireland. So,
right.
I personally never seen them, but there would be sometimes lights, pop up that I never really put that much, thought into back then, only because it was also during the same time of the year that fireflies, lightning bugs could be out, so I just blew it off. I didn't research it, really. I just knew that her house had a lot of energy on the property.
Well, and I think you also need to try to differentiate what's a real fairy ring and what isn't, which of course is going to be difficult because, back in Ireland, they were mistaking quote-unquote fairy rings for some old small forts that were basically in ruins, and they made a stone circle. There are others that are naturally occurring phenomena with mushrooms. So what is a real fairy ring? What is a natural occurrence, or the ruins of something that was man-made? I mean, it's that all has to get researched and looked into as well. So, there's there's just a lot of stuff to try to dig into on all this to try to weed out, the real from the not. So, per Tom McNicholas, this is for you, Shana, concerning Byron. Did you hear the boy's voice naturally or through an EVP?
Both.
Okay.
I did hear him a lot as EVPs, but there were times when I would hear him out loud too. So it was kind of a mix of both. And I saw him. I'd seen him more than once. Mm-hmm. Captured him one time, I believe in the form of a little shadow figure, kind of like at the school, really. And then the one that I wrote the story about in the Encounters book, because that was probably the more significant one. But unfortunately, unless I can make my way back to the cafe, I will probably never have any interaction with him again, because once I left the area, that was it.
Yeah. I'm going to work on Jeannie.
I know.
One of these days, I'd like to say step foot in there, but with no floor, I guess one of these days it's just like the plunge into there or something.
Yeah, well, it's about a foot into the front door. It just caves into the cellar.
Yeah.
I don't know what the back of the building looks like, because the back door is supposed to be deadbolted. There's the door up in the upstairs apartment. It's wired shut. I don't know what the structure of the building is like now, how stable it is now that, the floor has caved in.
Yeah.
So it would be pretty risky, but that doesn't mean I still don't want to do it,
Oh yeah.
I don't care. I don't care if
I'll sign a waiver.
Just to step inside the threshold of it.
Yeah.
Again, just to stand in the doorway or in the back, or just to be able to see inside of it again. That's all I need.
Yeah, and I'd like to just step in for 5 minutes just to get a sense of the energy, because I've heard so much about it from you. So, and
I mean, I became, so absorbed into this field because of that place.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I had not started working there, and when I think of everything that had happened in that building, I was in it alone many nights, and did not even realize what was above me, below me, around me. It was just random activity. But there was just so much. I mean, there are still thousands of hours of audio from that place that we have not even listened to yet, even after all this time, just because there's just so much of it. And I'm not talking about, well, I think I bookmarked something here, and then I bookmarked something here. I mean, it was literally just like you would run out of. It was just constant chatter in that place.
Yeah.
And you would so often ask a question, get an answer. Ask a question, get an answer. I mean, they were on it.
It is past time. We got a couple of other questions still sitting there. We'll handle them really quick, and then we got to wrap it up. It's past midnight here in the East. I know Shana has some other things that she needs to do as well. So I've got stuff to wrap up for the rest of the night concerning, because I got to go back to these videos, tag everything and all that, and then I have to take care of the Haunted Road Media 365 and the Daily Tarot. If you're familiar with what we're doing with Alexa, get those skills. The Alexa skills for Haunted Road Media 365 and the Daily Tarot. So I got to do those things. But here we go. From Nellie Moen, where do spirits go when the home or building is gone?
That's a good question.
That's an excellent question, because honestly, we don't know. And, spirits may decide to do different things. So it's something like what's happened with the goldenrod. Because the goldenrod is, well, I guess the hole is still there right now. But are the spirits still lingering around there? Did some of them decide to, find some family that's around? Did some decide maybe to go back to St. Louis because the boat was in St. Louis for so long? Did they find a local building to go to? Did they, quote unquote, cross over? We don't know. We do, Shana, we've talked about when we're able to go down there and, figure it out. Figure if there's anybody at least there, where the goldenrod has been for the last, 15 years or whatever. So,
yeah.
I don't know. And then this last one, Rico, why would ghosts haunt a cemetery? They do, though.
Well, I know some people that don't think that they do. Like if somebody passes on, they don't hang on to their, hang around their remains and stuff like that. But I'm kind of on the fence. I know that cemeteries are active. I've experienced it with my own eyes, with my ears, with, hands-on, things happening. Do I, a couple of families in particular reach out, by name and then have something, relevant happen that's directed at, whoever I was talking to. And I like to think sometimes that I assume that even though, when you die, that, your remains are no longer, you're obviously not going to hang out with your remains, but I like
somebody who's narcissistic might.
When you go forward, into whatever form of energy you're in after that, I like to think that if someone, comes to visit, or comes to pay their respects, or I wonder if maybe, wherever you are, and in this case, the one place that I'm talking about in particular, they lived just right up the road within walking distance.
Yeah.
So
I know who you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, maybe they're hanging out at their old property, and we're over there by their headstones, relating the story that we're seeing before us. Just looking at the stones, we see a story, and we're talking about it, and then all of a sudden we start experiencing activity there. So were they just down at their old property, and hey, there's somebody down there talking about us, and come visit? So I don't think that they just like hang around in the cemetery. I think they have different reasons for visiting. They, at least for a while after they've passed away, loved ones are going to go visit, and so they may go down there, take a peek, see if anybody's come to visit. Some people have speculated that when somebody is talking about you, so somebody from the living is talking about you, that you actually get a sense that somebody is. And so if that's true, maybe they pick up on that. And if the person is at the cemetery, they go to the cemetery. yeah, I think there's a lot of different reasons that they may hang out. We talk about, haunted objects and, maybe energy being trapped within an object. Well, people are buried with stuff. And so maybe a person's energy has attached to an object that's down in the casket. And so there they are. It could even be that, when they've passed on, well, everybody knows that, the whole town is going to end up in this cemetery, so I'll go down there to the cemetery and see if any of my old buds are, down there, I think there's a lot of different reasons they could be hanging out down there. And I don't necessarily think it's just to hang out. I don't think they live in the cemetery, but I think they do come to visit from time to time for one reason or another. And maybe it's even, that they are there to visit a grave. Maybe that, there's a loved one of theirs that has passed on that they can, for whatever reason, no longer touch base with. If there is that quote unquote other side that they, cross over to, maybe they haven't, the other person has, and so they go to visit the grave of the person that they can no longer get in touch with, they can no longer communicate with, and so they go there. So I think there's a lot of different reasons. All right, well, we need to wrap it up because we've gone a bit over here. So we'll do some quick shout outs. I see people are already starting to leave here. Mickey, Ether Shadow. So thank you for dropping in and hanging out with us tonight. Donna Gorton, thank you. Our Cheshire cat that is shenanigating the chat this evening. A real quick one. Katie Palmer, thank you, Katie Palmer. Do you think people are more haunted than places? I think some people can be more haunted than places. I think it depends on the person and the place. All right. So Sean Oldsmith, thank you very much from Australia. Awesome. Pungai Fungi, thank you for hanging out with us again. Carrie Parrish, thank you as well. I'm sorry we didn't get your whole story. We only caught like the last bits of it. Zoe Small, thank you. Akuma Grizz, thank you. One of our big Patreon patrons, along with Tom McNicholas. So we do have a Patreon page, patreon.com/Haunted Road Media. You can check that out. And also, again, anywhere on social media if you want to be a part of the giveaway that we're doing for the 5,000 subscribers. Oh, and if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Rika Yamakaze, thanks for hanging out with us tonight and asking a lot of questions. That was great. Again, Katie Palmer, Greg Renkin, thank you. Really do appreciate it. Susan Sack, thank you as well. Zippy Davis, guy that's always the first one in here. Jimmy Pop, thank you too. You had some questions as well. And you guys seem to have a pretty good conversation going back and forth tonight within the chat. So Ether, we got you. Shay Carroll, thank you, Shay. Really appreciate it again. And see, we had Deborah Sosby, thank you. Chipper Terry, thank you as well. Lenora Martinez, as always. Dan Hilbert, there you go, thank you. Nellie Moen, thank you for the questions. Beat 3 Airspace, thank you. And yes, I did get the reposting of your story, so appreciate that. It was a very, very interesting story. Who else do we have in here? Rin Oak, thank you as well. I saw that you had a lot of insight there in the chat. Anybody else? I'm just scrolling up a little bit more, and then I'll go back down and wrap it up. I did get Tom McNicholas. Imreo, IMREO. You had the telekinesis question. So, very cool. Okay, and Bridget Willis. Yes, of course.
So I need to give a shout out to Woody because he was here in spirit.
Woody was here in spirit. There you go. And M. Labuda 61. Thank you again. And Veronica Flores. Anybody else? All right. I think that's going to be about it. We got to run. I'm going to have to get some more tea and take care of the 365 stuff. So, again, thank you very much for a great episode. Shana, my love, thank you as well. And all of you have a wonderful evening again. Thanks for the 5,000, onward to 10,000, and much more coming up. So stay tuned for next week. This week, just real quick, Haunted Roads. Of course, we're Haunted Road Media, so we got to have Friday Night Ghost Frights on Haunted Roads, right? That's on Friday. So, till then, take care.
Thank you.